we're given two vectors, A and B, we know that when we add them together, we get this resultant vector C. And so it's easy to draw out in this way, but how do we solve this mathematically? In this video, I'm going to show how that's done. To do that, we have to consider the components of these vectors. So let me draw those out. We have our y component of A here. We have down here our x component of A. And then we have the x component of B and our y component of B. So for addition, when we're adding vectors together, we can simply add the components, the same components to each other, meaning that you can add the x component of A with the x component of B. And that is our resultant vector's x component. Then the same goes for y. Add the the y component of A and the y component of B, and then you get your y component of your resultant vector. So if we draw that out, let's do it in red, you get this, and you get this. So this red is ax plus bx, and then ay plus by. Now note that these is just the components of your resultant vector. So it works out that you just create one large right triangle out of the two smaller ones that make up the other vectors. And so that's simply how you add those together. Then with these components, you can do all your math like the Pythagorean theorem, all your trig functions with this angle or this angle. So you're just combining and adding components with each other. Now, let's say you had more than two vectors. Say you had three vectors. I won't draw them out, but if you had three vectors, we'll call your resultant vector r in this case. Your r component would just be the first vector's x component plus the second vector's component, x component, and the third vector's x component. So for however many vectors you have, you just add a new x component to it. So that's fairly straightforward how you add on vectors. Just the number of vectors is the number of components that you would have and that you would add together. Now, this problem we've done here is in two dimensions. We have an x and a y axis. But what if we had, say, three dimensions? Like in three-dimensional space, you've got x, y, z. How would we do this? Well, instead of adding a new term, you'd have a new equation. So, say we had two vectors in 3D. It would look like this, where you have your resultant vector, and then you have your x value, your y value, and z squared. So you've got three dimensions here for your Pythagorean theorem, your magnitude. And then you'd have your x component of your value would be your first vector plus your second vector, x component. Then your y would be this, and then your z would be, that's an a, would be this. These are your four equations in 3D. But then for 2D, like we have, it would just be, you have your x resultant plus your y resultant squared, and then you only have two equations, ax plus bx and a ay plus by. So that's just a brief introduction to how vectors can add together. It's through their components, you add their components, and you get resultant components, which you can then use the regular trigonometry to solve further problems. Again, I'll do more examples of this in the next few videos, just so that you can see it in action. So I'll see you there.